Look at this handheld. It's crazy. This part down here, it sort of looks like it has a face.
Yeah, you sort of look like you have a face too.
Ah, it talks.
You got that right. Now, what were you saying about my face, punk?
I don't know. I didn't mean nothing by it. You just don't look like other handhelds.
Well, you don't look like other humans. How does that feel?
Not good.
Exactly. So be nice.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, freaking dork.
Yeah. Hey there, how you doing? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. Powkiddy makes some weird devices. Unlike other companies, it feels like they're constantly reinventing the wheel rather than trying to perfect something that they've already figured out. Because of that, their devices tend to be very different from each other. And sometimes they'll have something that works well on one device that doesn't work well on another, and vice versa. You're always playing the lottery when a new Powkiddy device comes along, because who knows what's going to work and what isn't. However, on the plus side to this is that they have made some really unique devices. Lots of really good ones, actually. However, I don't think any device they've made has been unique as this one.
Hey, who you calling unique?
This, dweebs and lady dweebs, is the RGB20 Pro, a handheld unlike any that I've ever seen. And whether or not you like the look of this thing will depend on you, but I'm here to tell you that, at least from the hardware and software, it has it where it counts. Mostly. We'll talk about it. But regardless of whether or not you dig the look of this thing, and regardless of whether or not it's going to work well for most people's needs, I'm really glad that this exists. In a world of clones where every device feels like the same frickin' thing, when stuff like this comes along, I get excited. Because while we get something like this every day, we don't get something like this every day.
Dang right you don't.
And today I'm going to show it to you, show you what it does well, and help you decide if you want this interesting, weird, slightly deranged, but also super interesting thing in your life.
My uncle was a forklift.
Oh, neat. Let's begin with the unboxing, shall we? This was sent to me by GoGameGeek for the purpose of review, and if you want one of these, you can buy it from them using the link in the description below. There's not much to see here, actually. You get a memory card that contains the system and games, and the device itself, obviously. Underneath there, we get a word paper book and a USB-C cable, and nothing else. Powkiddy might make unique devices, but they certainly aren't unique with their packaging. This is about as generic as it gets. You know, I give Amberlook a lot of crap for their silly names, but really I should be turning that negativity towards Powkiddy, because these guys don't give a crap about their names. At least the Amberlook names sort of tell you something about the device, because the name gives you hints about the screen size, the chipset, and whether it's horizontal or vertical or cube. Powkiddy names don't even bother doing that. When you hear RGB20 Pro, that tells you nothing about the device. This thing bears no resemblance to the RGB20S, and it's not any more pro than that thing. It's just weird that they can't come up with names that make sense.
Yeah, well, maybe your name doesn't make sense either. You ever think about that? What even is your name?
What do you mean? I'm TechDweeb.
Your mom named you TechDweeb?
Yeah?
And then you became a TechDweeb?
Yep.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. A bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, huh? Let's take a look at the specs, and yep, you guessed it. This thing is powered by the RK356X processor. This is about the 8,000th device that uses that chip, but that's fine, I guess. It's a good chip for the price. We get 1 GB of LPDDR4 RAM. The screen is a 3.2-inch IPS screen with a resolution of 1024 by 768, which is very interesting. We'll talk about the display in a bit. And we get Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, which is a big battery.
That's not all that's big.
Oh yeah? What else is big?
My heart.
Aww. On the front, we have a screen, D-pad up here, volume up and down, a single front-facing speaker, and face buttons. And then down here, we have our sticks, start and select, a power indicator LED, and an open area where you can see those juicy insides.
Hey, my eyes are up here.
On the left side is an SD card hole for the games. On the right side is a reset button, power button, and an SD card hole for the system. Up top is a USB-C hole for charging and an HDMI hole for video out and another USB-C hole for OTG connection. Underneath we have a headphone hole.
Would you mind not posting videos my holes online? Thanks.
Oh yeah, I'll make sure to cut that part out. As you can see, this thing is not like any other handheld you've seen. They're going for this kind of cyberpunk aesthetic. It's like a futuristic construction vibe is how I think of it. It looks great to me. Honestly, this is the reason I was excited to check it out. It's interesting. You know, in a world of clones of clones of clones, this thing definitely stands out from the crowd, and I'm here for it. And the face down here is slightly deranged, but hey, a deranged friend is better than no friend at all.
I feel the same way.
When I got this thing in my hands, it immediately struck me at how tall and narrow it is. It almost feels like the same size as a smartphone. Speaking of which, it definitely feels bigger than a phone in the pocket because of the thickness and these bumper humps, but it is still quite pocket friendly. Isn't that right?
Your pocket is my home away from home. Oh, by the way, your toilet is busted.
Wait, what toilet? Oh no. However, they did a really good job with the placement of the sticks and the buttons and the feel of the shelf around back for your fingers with the bumpers and triggers. It really just feels very comfortable in your hands when you're playing with the D-pad. Not quite as comfortable with the sticks, especially if you need to use the bumpers and triggers at the same time. You can play stick stuff on here, it's fine, it's just not as comfortable as the D-pad stuff. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Well, that's because you don't have hands and fingers.
Haha, you're not wrong there.
Do you wish you had hands and fingers?
Sometimes. Do you wish you had analog sticks?
Sometimes. The controls are generally good. The D-pad is big, mushy rubber membrane style. It's a bit loose on the diagonals, but it's not too bad. It doesn't do as good in a game like Contra, but it does better in a fighting game. Easy to pull off special moves. It's also easy to accidentally press diagonals in menus and stuff, but it's not terrible or anything. I really like the feel of the D-pad overall. Same thing with the buttons, they feel great, membrane style, and they're not loud at all. Bumpers and triggers are slightly clicky, not silent but not super loud, and the sticks are fine. Not super accurate, but there's no cardinal snapping and they're usable. My test for sticks is if I can cross this bridge in Ocarina of Time. And I can with these sticks. They're not going to win Best Stick of the Year award. That award goes to my stick, which is the best stick. But these sticks get the job done considering there's not a ton of games that you can actually play on here that will make good use of analog sticks anyways. Overall, yeah, pretty average controls. Better than bad, good enough, but not great. Apart from how it looks, this screen is probably the most interesting thing about this thing. It is a really great screen. It's bright and clear, great colors, great viewing angles. It's 3.2 inches, so it's not as big as the 3.5 inch devices. And if you have bad eyes, then I'll tell you right now, you're not gonna like this thing. However, this has a resolution of 1024 by 768. So this thing is higher than 720p for all intensive purposes. That is super crisp at this size. It's 4x3, which means we'll have great scaling options for most of the retro stuff, and because we have such a high pixel density, that gives us even more options for integer scaling, or using interpolation shaders to give us that integer scaling look. I'm not going to go deep on the settings that I chose for every system. Definitely check out my integer scaling video if you want to know how I approach that stuff. But I'll just say that I love having a panel like this with so many pixels to work with because you can get every single system looking amazing. The sound is, it's alright. We have one single speaker, which isn't great. It's front facing, which is good. The quality is fine, but it's not loud and it's definitely not bassy. It'll get the job done for hearing your games, but you're not going to be rocking out to the Donkey Kong Country theme on this thing.
Speak for yourself, TechDweeb. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah.
One little gripe I have is that the headphone jack is weird. Powkiddy has been doing this weird headphone jack on their last few devices that makes the audio all glitchy with most of my headphones. I only have one pair of headphones that sounds normal on these recent Powkiddy devices. I've called them out in all my recent videos. Like, why? Why are they still doing this? It feels like something everybody should be complaining about. Why is it only me complaining about this?
That's easy to answer. Because you're a whiny baby.
Well, you're not wrong, but still, I wish they'd freaking fix their headphone audio.
Well, we all have wishes, TechDweeb. For example, I wish you weren't such a whiny baby.
The system we have on here out of the box is ArcOS. Ordinarily, I love ArcOS, and I do like it here. It gets the job done, but I had a few issues with the stock system. First, the device doesn't shut down properly, even if you do it from the menu. You need to actually hold the power button down to shut it off. And also the Bluetooth wasn't working. We have HDMI out and Bluetooth, and I always test this stuff, and I was thinking it would be cool to use this as a home console, like plugged into the TV or whatever. But I couldn't get the freaking Bluetooth to connect on any of my controllers. It was just being all weird. However, I went and installed a fresh copy of Rocknix on an SD card just to test it, and the Bluetooth worked totally fine there. It was easy to set this up, and I just ended up copying over my games and box art and my games lists from my FlipZizzle running newly, and that all worked great, and all of the problems on the stock system were fixed. I really love Rocknix. It's a great mature firmware, and it has the ability to tweak all the settings you need. I'm happy I took this step to set this up, because it's just that much better. I will say that other than the power button and the Bluetooth issue, the stock OS is totally fine. ArcOS is a great operating system, and it's all set up for you and ready to go. Even the games lists are decent. They have decently organized lists and mostly 1G, 1R ROM sets. That means you won't get a ton of janky ROMs or whatever, and they're properly named. PowKiddy isn't perfect with their ROM sets, but they're better than most of these doodad companies.
TechDweeb, could you stop calling me a doodad already?
Okay, well, what should I call you then?
I'm obviously more of a thingamabob.
Yeah, I'll try to remember that. Gaming on the RGB20 Pro is a pretty standard affair, at least in terms of performance. The RK3566 chip is well known at this point. It's been tested to death, and you're not going to have any surprises here. You'll be able to play everything up to PS1 with no problems at all. Everything plays perfect. Beyond that, you'll get a ton of Dreamcast and N64 and Nintendo DS and PSP. Not every game from those systems will play perfectly, but most will. And with either Rocknix or ArcOS, you'll get lots of emulator options, so you can run with the standalone emulators to get better performance, or you can tweak the RetroArch core options to enable frame skip or whatever. Really, the performance you'll get isn't what makes this thing interesting. When it comes to gaming, what makes it interesting is the screen that we have to game on. This screen is really high pixel density, which isn't common on cheaper devices like this. 1024 by 768 at 3.2 inches is seriously crisp. The vast majority of retro systems can be either run with integer scaling at nearly full screen, or you can use a lightweight interpolation shader to give it the appearance of integer scaling. And even to my trained eye, I couldn't tell the difference. All that old stuff scales great. Arcade, Atari, NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx-16, PS1, even Dreamcast and N64, that 4x3 stuff looks great on here. However, this screen is a bit smaller than the 3.5-inch screen devices. So if you're not into smaller screens, then the trade-off of sharpness probably won't be worth it to you. I'm nearsighted, so it's not a problem for me. I really appreciate the sharpness and I love looking at this screen, but I don't think everyone will be the same as me. Not to mention that the non-4x3 stuff will be even smaller than usual. Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Pico 8 are vertically much smaller here than on a 3.5-inch device. And Game Boy Advance and PSP are even narrower than those other devices. I personally don't have any issue playing those systems on here except for PSP. It's just too small on here, even for me. Everything else is good to go, assuming you don't have a problem with seeing a smaller image on a smaller screen.
Yeah, but can you see this?
What? Where did you find that? Overall, I'm kind of conflicted about the Powkiddy RGB20 Pro. Don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't like it, it's just that I'm kind of confused by it. It's a cheaper device, but it's not as cheap as other devices that do what this thing can do, like the RG35XX Plus, for example. The screen is amazing on the 20 Pro, but it's not so amazing that it's worth picking this thing specifically for the screen, especially considering that it's a smaller screen. And considering it's a smaller screen, it's a bit weird that the device itself is so big compared to something like the RG35XX Plus that can do more or less what this thing can do, but it's smaller, bigger screen, and it's cheaper. However, the RGB20 Pro is unique as heck. It doesn't do anything that the other thingamabobs don't do, but it definitely stands out from the crowd. And if you like the way it looks, and I personally very much do like the way it looks,
and who could blame you?
I think if you get this for that reason alone, you'll have a great time with it. It's a bit weird, but I kind of like that about it. In this handheld world where everything feels like the same thing over and over, the RGB20 Pro stands out. And for that reason alone, I think we should be saying, yeah, Powkiddy. You did something unique, and that's cool.
Thanks for having an open mind, buddy. I knew you'd see the beauty within me.
Oh, well, that's nice to say.
No problem. Hey, TechDweeb, could you introduce me to that sweet thang over there?
Oh, the iNeo Pocket DMG?
Yeah, man. She's hot stuff.
Oh, well, I should tell you that I think she has a boyfriend.
That never stopped me before.
Oh, And if you want to get yourself a Powkiddy RGB20 Pro, you can buy it from GoGameGeek, and there's a link in the description below. And that brings us to the end. I'm curious to know what you think of this thing. Do you think it's cool? Stupid? Would you ever get something like this? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. While you're down there, click the thumbs up button if you like the video, or slap yourself in the face if you didn't. And while you're at it, subscribe if you haven't. That's it from me. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.